Spaced is a British comedy series directed by Edgar Wright and stars Simon Pegg and Jessica Stevenson as the two leads. The show was short-lived, running from 1999 to 2001, with only 2 seasons, with 7 episodes each. The show also featured Nick Frost, whom, along with Simon Pegg, would go on to star in 3 other movies directed by Edgar Wright. And now that I've got the obligatory introduction out of the way, how the heck actually is the show? Well, to be quite frank, Spaced is one of the most unique and well-crafted comedies out there. Honestly, in my opinion, this is up to par with Monty Python. And a great deal of that comedy has to be credited to Edgar Wright himself. He's the real star of the show. His direction is just so well polished and well realized that there's really nothing else out there like it. Everything is so overly melodramatic, like the close-ups and the music cues, and the stylistic choices that Edgar Wright chooses behind the camera matches up flawlessly with the writing. The best example that I can think of is in the pilot, where Tim and Daisy, Simon Pegg and Jessica Stevenson's characters, decide to pretend to be a couple so that they can move into a couples-only apartment. They're walking down the street, learning as much as they can about each other, telling each other that they're friends, siblings, which college they went to, etc. Whilst this is happening, it cuts to several examples, as well as visual gags, another thing Edgar flourishes in. But after they finish, they just then tell each other their own names. With that being said, the humor in the show is very quick-paced and loud. It rarely doesn't work for me. The whole show has this sort of amateurish look to it, sort of like a Steve Brule sketch or something. I don't know, maybe I'm just crazy, but the whole look really helped elevate the comedy, at least for me. Another thing that I have to commend Edgar Wright on are his numerous pop culture references. There are so many that the DVD comes with an homageometer, which tells you what movie is being satirized at that particular moment. I think my favorite reference would have to be in an episode in Series 2 where Daisy gets a job at this fast food restaurant, and every person who works there acts like a character from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Everyone. You've got the tyrannical Nurse Ratched, the shy Billy Babbitt. It had me in tears laughing. But where Spaced really shines is through its so memorable supporting characters. Don't get me wrong, Simon and Jessica are hysterical as the 2 main characters, and not to mention they have great chemistry, but the supporting characters were definitely the part of the show that made me come back for more. There's Mike, the war-obsessed best friend played by Nick Frost, the apartment owner Marcia, who's sort of a deadbeat woman who has nothing better to do, Brian, the creepy neighbor who lives downstairs making quote-unquote art. Then there's Twist, Daisy's best friend, who, to be honest, didn't really do that much for me, but at least gave someone who Daisy could relate with at times. Every single one of these characters were so memorable, and while they did some unlikable things at times, it is framed in a way where it doesn't make them come off as unlikable. Nick Frost's character especially grabbed my fancy. He has this whole sort of goofball charm to him that really makes you root for him, all despite the fact that he's massively obsessed with violence. So if the series was great, why did it end? Well, to be perfectly honest, I don't know. The most I could gather was that they were planning to do a 3rd series, but by the time they got around to it, everyone was too old and had moved on to bigger things. Wright felt that everyone had matured enough to the point where nobody was the same anymore, and that putting effort into something that probably wouldn't be very good was superfluous. He wanted Spaced to stay off on a high note, which it did. In conclusion, Spaced is an outrageous comedy with great characters, great writing, and stellar direction. It introduced the world to one of the best comedy directors working today, and it gets my highest of recommendations. Go check it out as soon as you can, because chances are you've probably never heard of it. 9 out of 10.